What's up? My name is Andy Mkosi, and this is FFS FM, and you're listening to TAVE Radio. What you just heard in the intro is a song by my friend Fernando Damon, a musician, producer, and a drummer. Just an all-around fantastic artist, man, based out in Cape Town. Do check out his catalog, dope as f***. Keep it locked if you want to know more about laws of film and copyright. We got guests, we got good music. Just hit subscribe on the YouTube channel, Free Film School YouTube channel. So while doing my research for the show today, I came across a name, Russell Smith, a professional photographer based out in Cape Town. So Russell at some point had written a blog post that encompassed izinto ezifana copyright and laws in South Africa. And so he was speaking from a point of a photographer who's dealt with situations that have to do with some of these topics that we're speaking about. And so I reached out to Russell, who was kind enough to agree to speak to us. So a disclaimer before I play the interview that Russell so kindly agreed to partake in. Russell Smith is a professional photographer and will only be speaking based on experiences as a practicing photographer in South Africa. He is by no means a copyright lawyer or claim to be one. These are just his views and not the law. Russell's in no position to offer any one-on-one consultations with creators. So today we're just learning and hearing what Russell has dealt with and what solutions have worked for him in his path.
Good morning and welcome. I am Russell Smith, a professional photographer based in Cape Town, South Africa. And I wrote a blog on some of the copyright laws around photography that I have experienced and myself have come in contact with over the years that I've been a professional photographer. So before I continue this voice message note, I just want to qualify that I'm not a legal expert in copyright law, and I will be speaking from what I've learned in my personal experience and capacity. And this is hopefully going to help creatives, and not only photographers, be a little bit more savvy when it comes to their rights when conducting their business. So the first topic I've been asked to speak about is contracts. And my feeling about contracts is, while they're important, they could potentially be quite scary for clients on a practical level. And with the ever increasing number of professional photographers in the market, you don't want to give your clients any reason to avoid working with you. Having said that, it is very important to discuss and explain up front what your usage covers, and especially if it's for international use, what your usage costs are. I say international as within South Africa, we don't really discuss usage, as our laws are a little bit different here. We, by default, do not own the copyright to our work if we are commissioned and paid for the work. I will talk a little bit about this more later. I would definitely sort of emphasize that you need to communicate well and generally upfront. It can be in your quote, it can be in an email when discussing with your potential client what the scope of the work entails. But if any discrepancies come up, they should be thrashed out at this stage, at the beginning, not after the shoot or during the shoot, because that can become very uncomfortable, cause uncomfortable situations, that is, and you don't want to be in that position where everything's not clearly stated and everybody has the same understanding up front and before the work begins. It's also, in my experience, easier maybe to have a contract when you're dealing with a global entity or a producer that's representing you for a global or advertising agency that are dealing with a global client, that you could possibly put a contract in place, as they're used to dealing with non-disclosure agreements with models. They generally they're just used to dealing with contracts, and that might be a bit less scary for them. And I must just add here that if you are dealing with the US especially, you have to have everything down in writing, because they're particularly aware of lawsuits and such, so you want to have everything down. I think just in general, have anything written down that you can go back to, because sometimes verbal can be ambiguous, and you think you heard something, people can deny what they've said. So yeah, if you've got a paper trail, it always helps. Look, don't get me wrong, I'm very much an advocate for the author of the work, or the creative person, the photographer, be it in my case, to protect themselves and have a contract in place. But this then maybe should be looked at maybe in a less formal way to make it less intimidating. If you feel, however, in your gut something is wrong with a person asking you to do the work or commissioning you, and you feel that there's potential for you to be taken advantage of, then, as I say, put down words on paper and gain clarity. And do it in a way that makes you feel comfortable, without necessarily reams and reams of legal contract. So just to reiterate one point, and that is more specifically on international jobs, where you're being commissioned by a person, company, business overseas, and you're working locally. Either work with a producer who's had experience in this, or make sure that you cover yourself in terms of what they're going to be doing with the images, and how long they can use the images, because often other countries will pay for this and pay differently for this. So yeah, I will go more into that in detail later, but I just wanted to emphasize that international clients will need you need to make sure that you are quite clear as to how the images or the work that you produce can be used, where it can be used, for how long it can be used, because that will affect your conditions and your costs, and so on.
So are you guys feeling empowered yet? Do you feel like you're ready for your next job and how to approach it? FFS FM, Russell Smith, a professional photographer based in Cape Town, sharing his views and knowledge about contracts in South Africa. And that's only part one, guys, of the knowledge share.
So the next question that I wanted to address was what should photographers be taking into consideration when charging a client? When charging a client, you need to make sure before you put down your costs to them that you understand exactly where and how the work will be used. If the work is an art piece that's going to be hung up on a wall, or it's going to be for a portfolio for somebody to show off the interior design for themselves, or even if it's marketing for that business, to help promote that business, get more work, or show off their product, you need to understand where your images are going to be going and how they're going to be, is money going to be derived from the use of your images? And so I think that's very important to ascertain when you are quoting. As I've mentioned before, if the images are staying within South Africa, then it'll be difficult to charge usages, as we don't have that generally in the country. The rules say that the copyright is instantly transferred to the commissioner or the person paying for the work. Unlike in the US, for example, where after a period of time the usage returns to the author or the creator, and the copyright is never handed over from the author. Unless you specify beforehand in those countries that they get the copyright or they pay for the copyright, it generally is owned by the author. Whereas in South Africa, it's generally owned by the commissioner. So I remember once I was asked to do a travel story. I was very lucky to go to Mauritius, and it was for a travel magazine, and they wanted me to go for 4 or 5 days because that's how long the writer was going to be going for, and they only had the budget for 2 days of my time. So there I actually negotiated with him and said, well, I'm happy to go for the 5 days, but then I will own the copyright of those images after a certain period of time that the magazine has gone out for and has been on the shelves. And there I have something I can negotiate with, because they were unable to pay me for the 5 days, but then I got the images back and I could resell those images after time and make additional profit from those images. So there was something in it there for me to work with, to negotiate with. And that's what I'm saying. It's very important for you to understand this and where you stand with this, because then you can potentially bring it into the conversation with your clients.
TAVE Radio, FFS FM, talking copyright laws, finding out what we need to know, learning, uplifting, and just protecting ourselves as artists today. Thank you so much to everyone that contributed to today's episode of FFS FM on TAVE Radio. It's been a pleasure hanging out, and I hope you will share, like, and watch all the other tutorials on the Free Film School YouTube channel. Audi skadowdy.